Right, guys, the third part of the narrative trilogy is about to begin. We're about to chat to three Tottenham fans after what's been a roller coaster of a start to a season. But what is the truth? We're about to find out exactly that from the lads. Now, all three of the fans we're about to chat to are people who are a part of the Discord server, the JLA Discord server. There's a link in the description. Go and check out the Discord server for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you enjoy this channel, you want to be a part of this channel, that is the place where we make those decisions. And secondly, it's a place where I go to get the right voices, which is you guys, because those are the voices that I want to hear and I want to trust and I want to get on the channel. But secondly, if you like free stuff, we've given away about 30 different bits and pieces already. Amazing socks, amazing mystery boxes with football shirts. Beer 52 are going to be giving a giveaway on this one. So the last two videos, we've got one on Arsenal, one on Liverpool. Go check them out. We've got giveaways on both of those. And the same rules apply for this one. So join the Discord server and then write down why you should get yourself a case of Beer 52 beer. We will pick 5 of you and you'll just get something free for being a good part of this channel, because I want to give back to you as much as I can, okay? So get involved. Massive thank you to Beer 52. Wonderful, wonderful people over there. And let's get into this, because we've got Ben, we've got Sonny, we've got Pyro, and we've got 3 Tottenham fans that are, well, I'll tell you what, first question. In a word, Sonny, what are you as we reach this international break? One word.
Nervous.
Nervous.
I'm gonna go.
Okay, Ben, one word. What are you?
Nervous. I think, well, I was hopefully going into this trying to be confident, but I think the nerves are sort of caught up over the last week or so I'd say the same as Sonny, yeah.
Pyro?
I'll go excited. I'll
Yes.
elaborate later if you want.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, definitely. Because, yeah, we're going to chat here. I mean, don't just sit there. I'm going to need you to talk, Pyro. Right. I'll tell you what we'll do. And let's start off on the right note. And we've done with the Liverpool video. Did this with the Arsenal video. I'm going to do it with this one as well. Because we're talking about 3 teams that are title pretenders. Now, Tottenham, are kind of sort of... It feels like you've snuck in there. But, you've won a lot of games this year. And obviously we'll get into that because there's obviously some problems around that. And actually, shout out to Aston Villa fans who inevitably will be in the comments going, why aren't we having a video? I get it, you're 1 point behind Tottenham, but... I apologise. I've done a video on how great you are, so go watch that. Sonny, so the question I asked both those groups of fans was, what are the strengths of your team that people might not be aware of? Now, I know that's not at the forefront, but if you kind of give yourself a chance just to kind of remember and collect, when you think about strengths when it comes to Tottenham this season and their possibilities for doing great things, what do you believe are the big strengths for Tottenham?
Well, I think when you said that straight away, my first thought was unity. I think we have finally got a squad where they're all pulling together. They all believe in this manager. And they're all singing from the same hymn sheet, you could say. Postecoglou has come in with an identity, with a philosophy of attacking football. And, these players, a lot of these players have had to go through Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte, Nuno. I always forget he was in the middle of those two. He did happen. That was a nightmare.
Ryan Mason.
But, yeah. Brian Mason, Stellini, they've had everyone, everyone in the dog. So now we've got a manager who's got, this identity, a philosophy, I keep saying, and he's just breathing new life into players. I know, James, you're a massive fan of Basuma. He's brought the best out of these players who, 1, had potential, or 2, were looking like they were going down a pathway which they were never going to return to. So I think unity, you see the reaction of Basuma after the Chelsea game. He's annoyed, he's furious. They're all pulling in the same direction. And I believe, the Wolves game that's just happened was a bit of an anomaly because of certain individuals who I never like talking about. Your Eric Dyers of the world, who sadly are not good enough to play this style of football.
Okay. Pyro, what do you think? Is there any other strengths that come to mind for you?
Yeah, I think if you kind of go back to when Conte came to Premier League and Chelsea, he brought the new 3 at the back system with him. And I don't think before then, the only team I can think about that did that was Wigan under Martinez. And it's similar now with Ange, in the sense where he's brought these inverted wing backs. And it's not a surprise. Everyone's yapping on about Ange's tactics. Every other team knows how we're going to play. But the reason why it's working is because the opposing centre defensive midfielder is brought out of position to cover Porro and Udogie, and then that creates a hole in the middle for Maddison to exploit. And the reason why we're performing so well is because Maddison kind of understands Ange's rigid system that's made to look fluid. But teams can't stop it because they haven't prepared for a tactic like this. Right. Maybe next year they probably will adjust to it.
So I don't want to get onto weaknesses too quickly, but I'll jot that down. Okay. So Ben, what else? Is there anything else when it comes to those strengths that and again, maybe one here, strengths despite all these injuries? Because I had a little look, and there's on the, premierinjuries.com, if you do want to know people's injuries, and there's a lot of potential returns that say 2024, which is not ideal. So kind of even with all those injuries, what would you say are there any other strengths for this Tottenham side?
Yeah, I think the thing I wanted to talk about actually kind of bleeds into that quite nicely, because I think our biggest strength is our coach and his ability to just take the pressure off in these high pressure situations where everybody's panicking. We went into Friday not really knowing the length of time that Maddison and Van der Ven were going to be out. And Postecoglou, he delivers that news in the press conference. We're all panicking, but then he just does such a good job of calming everyone down. And that kind of bleeds back to Sonny's point about talking about the unity around the club at the moment. I was there at the Chelsea game last week, and the fact that everybody was off their seats, clapping, getting behind the team when those third and fourth goals went in, shows a massive sea change from last season. And I think there are so many tactical strengths of this team, but I just think in terms of that character that we've seen, that we're just on the pitch, there are certain players, the whole team, but I think there are certain players like Maddison who are just that embodiment of the coach that we've got now. Fearless, not afraid to take things on. And you've got Maddison, I think, who's got such a high football IQ that he can adapt to play. He could play in a number of positions in this system for me. And I think you've got players that Postecoglou's come in and improved that were on those fringes last year. And I think it's just about, so much of football, I think, is about your environment. And I think the environment that he has created now at Tottenham allows these players on the fringes to succeed. And I think it all just comes down to his communication and his kind of oration in the press, the way he brings himself across. I just think is probably, as a club at the moment, our biggest strength and his biggest skill.
Sonny, do you think the thing that, this is the cynical side of me coming out? Yeah, that's right. I've got a cynical side, and here it is. The thing that I struggle with this is, and the problem with what I'm about to say is that the data set is essentially one game when we're thinking about all these injuries. That unity that you're talking about, how impressive Postecoglou has been in press conferences, which I totally agree with. But is it easier? How long does that remain if you start losing what is a really tough run of games? When I had a look at it, Aston Villa flying right now, Man City, always flying, Newcastle, tough game, West Ham, horrible game for Tottenham, for Tottenham to ever play in. Are you fearful that if the results change, then the feeling around Postecoglou will change? And if so, how much time do you think you've got when it comes to the Tottenham fan base? You know better than me.
I find it really interesting because obviously Tottenham fans have been impacted, as I say, by the previous coaches I've mentioned. They sort of ripped the life and soul out of the fan base. Ben mentioned there, I went to some games last year, Arsenal, West Ham. The toxicity in that stadium between fans themselves, arguing, debating about, are you Conte and Conte? It was horrible. So there is that side to the fan base where if things aren't clicking, but I still believe that it won't be on Postecoglou for a while, because we've seen, he usually starts slower sides, Celtic, his Australian teams, Yokohama, slow starts. But here it's sort of, we're seeing an identity straight away. There's been, two glaring results. Well, 3 if you want to count Fulham in the cup as well. But that is a bit of an anomaly because he changed the side so much. But I think what the thing will be is the fans will then point at Levy and be like, look at this situation we're in now. You've lost a centre-back. So this is what I've seen. People, there's been a couple of different opinions come out. People have either gone like, well, is Postecoglou a bit naive to keep going with this tactic? 9 men against Chelsea and you're still playing this high line. Wolves still playing the same tactics when you've got Eric Dyer, Ben Davis, Højbjerg, people who can't really play the system. And then there's other fans who are like, well, Levy now knows what he has to do in January. We need another centre-back. Or in the summer just gone, Did we have to strengthen even more? We had a great window, Vicario, Maddison, Brennan Johnson, they've all come in and made impacts. There was still a lot that needed to be done in that summer transfer window, and I don't think you'd find one Spurs fan who wouldn't say we needed another defender. When we were linked with Mickey van der Ven and Tap Sober, we wanted both. We didn't want just one, we wanted both because we were so weak at the back. We restricted ourselves. We were like, okay, Ashley Phillips is now the next person in command because Dyer was frozen out, but now Dyer's been chucked back in. So Hugo Lloris is still at the club. There's still a lot of issues to solve in this Tottenham set up, and not to sound like Arsenal fans, but it is going to be a process, and we're only 12 games into this process. We've seen how they've gone in one direction. We might have to take the rough with the smooth, and we all knew this squad was threadbare. It's a threadbare squad. The starting 11 is fantastic when they're all fit, but in this scenario that we're in now, probably have to look at. But then quickly, one last point. Levy looks like he is taking a step back. He's brought in Johan Lang from Aston Villa, another scout from Villa as well. Scott Munn obviously started in the summer. So there might be a sea change at Spurs happening, but this is Daniel Levy we're talking about. Never hold your breath.
Okay. Pyro, how do you feel about that? Are you with that similar idea that's interesting, that the Heat will never get anywhere near Postecoglou for the foreseeable, regardless of results, because the first person in the line of fire is going to be Levy?
Yeah, honestly, I think this is the most interesting question here. So I'm an occupational psychologist, but in football clubs, culture is really, really important and something that isn't considered by fans. Postecoglou, there was an Athletic article that came out a couple months ago, and a recent interview with Rio Ferdinand, where Postecoglou said character is more important than talent. And with a culture shift comes with a different mindset from the fans as well, because they are connected with the culture. The fans are seeing the progress. They're kind of seeing the openness from Ange, right? They're seeing the honesty, the directedness. Other fans of other football clubs, like yourself as well. And I think if the culture changes, it will take a long time, but we are definitely seeing progress for that. Then fans' mindset will also change. But I could be wrong here because my exposure to Spurs fans is limited now that I'm based in Leeds. It's just, Leeds fans everywhere.
Yeah.
But I think the tricky thing here is that there's a huge kind of elephant in the room of trophies. And I personally don't really... I grew up when Tottenham were mid-table. They've always been kind of crap. I'm not used to us winning trophies anyway. I get we should have won one, but then that murmur in the back of your head might cause some fans to lose a bit of patience eventually, which is going to be natural.
And that's something that Ange has actually spoken about, again, in a really impressive way, where it's like, it's got to be more than that. It's got to be about more than that. And that's a clever way of just getting it out of the room, right? A little bit. Like, and because it's like, it's even if it's outside the room, it's trying to barge its way in like all the time. I think exactly. I agree. Like, I think the thing that I'm intrigued to see is, like, there's been some critiques about, like, do you go too far with the style of play? Do you, like you said, Sonny, do you just not have the pieces to play that kind of football? And at some point, do you have to, do some emergency, changes, even if it's to get to January? Because I think that's the thing for me. I looked into where Spurs could finish, right? And I would suggest that, although I've popped them in this video because they're, 2 points off. Are they 2 points? Yeah, 2 points off top, which is amazing, right? And I mean, could they? Maybe. But the general idea, especially now with those injuries, which, like, it was a disaster of a game, like, in terms of the suspensions and the injuries. Like, you could have dealt with the sendings off, but, like, the injuries are just an absolute killer for you. But looking at the points over the last, 5 seasons, Tottenham want to finish 4th, right? Would that be the overall aim here? Like, is 5th okay? Like, where's... Because let me put this out there. I'll tell you, answer that question at the end. We'll keep people listening. If you want to finish 4th, you have to get 71 points. Over the last 5 years, you need to get 71 points. So really, you probably need to get yourself 72 points. So for you to get to that, you're on course to get that, like, at the moment. But of course, between now and January 1st, and let's be honest, it will probably be more likely January 31st when it comes to Daniel Levy, that's a long period of time and a lot of games to stay in the fight. So, Ben, does Postecoglou need to to change a little bit. I've heard him. I saw the Rio Ferdinand thing, and he was, he's saying that, well, I can't change. I don't want to change. And I also, I also think the high line in that game, he thought that was the best chance for them to win that game of football. But if you've got Dyer and Davies there, is it foolhardy between now and the end of January, or when you get these players back?
Yeah, it's going to be tricky. These next few months are going to be a massive test, not just because of the difficulty of the games, the volume of them, right? We should have Romero back within the next couple of games after his suspension, so things change a little bit then. But if you're looking at Tottenham's next two games, you've got Aston Villa and Man City, and if Tottenham are to play a high line in those two games, there is a chance that we could be very vulnerable, especially when you think about Aston Villa with the pace of Watkins and the pace of Diaby. But I just don't think he's gonna budge. And for me as a Spurs fan, I'd rather take the hit in the short term of maybe losing these games that on paper will be really difficult. You mentioned there about having 71 points to be able to qualify for the Champions League over the course of the last 4 or 5 seasons or whatever it was. The top 6 or 7 now, even top 8 maybe, I think is the strongest it's ever been in the Premier League. So totally. Whichever 4 teams make it into that top 4 will be there on merit. And as Tottenham fans, we can't get so obsessed about the Champions League, because if Tottenham finish 5th or 6th this season, that is massive progress on last season, not just because we've jumped up 2 or 3 spots in the league. It's because we've seen, to be able to pick up that many points to even finish 5th or 6th, given the quality of the teams around us, that will show huge amounts of progress of what we've done on the pitch. I think, will he change? I'm not 100% sure. And you look at the Chelsea game.
Do you want him to change?
No, not for me. I get that with Eric Dyer especially, you're looking at the high line and you automatically think of the issue with pace, right? But I think Eric Dyer and Ben Davies for the next couple of games. Eric Dyer was moved into midfield for a reason when he was younger. He's not bad on the ball. I've seen it in pre-season where he did play a couple of the games, and you just need to get used to those kind of passing patterns. And I think if you look at the game against Wolves on Saturday, there was just a little bit of a lack of fluidity and confidence throughout the whole team. And I think that's what happens when you take out 4 key players. You just look a bit rusty. Like, I kind of think the player I felt sorry for the most for on Saturday was Pap Sarr, because he's had a brilliant start to the season, playing as a number 8, kind of box-to-box midfielder, arriving late in the box. He scored against Man United. He's had a lot of kind of shot-creating actions. He's done really well breaking up possession and getting Tottenham up the pitch. He was excellent in that first 20 minutes against Chelsea. But then you pivot to Wolves, and he's then asked to do something completely different, because Ange hasn't really got the tools yet to figure out that replacement for Maddison. I'm sure we'll come on to how do we do that. Obviously, you've got, at the moment, Bentancur. You don't want to rush him back. He's gone away on international duty with Uruguay, which, as Sonny said at the start of the video, how do you feel about Tottenham? That kind of bleeds into that nervousness, because, he's not started a game for us yet. You want to see he comes back fit and healthy. You've got Giovanni Lo Celso, who hasn't played a hell of a lot of football. So I think what he's done so far, he's future-proofed himself enough by, like you said, taking the pressure off right at the start by saying Tottenham don't just want to win a trophy for the sake of it, basically. It has to mean something. We have to be able to compete. And I think he's overachieved already to the point where we're 2 points off top. And regardless of what's happened over the last couple of games, if you strip all of that away, if we'd have got to the second international break 2 points off top, as a fan base, we'd all be buzzing. And I think that positive energy is very much still there. And because of what he's done so far, he deserves so much kind of time and support from the fan base to figure it out. He's going to get it wrong in the next few games. It'll be very interesting to see who he starts in midfield, because I think midfield is, at the moment, although the defence looks more glaringly kind of problematic without Romero and Van de Ven, but the midfield is going to be a longer term issue because Romero's back quite quickly. Yeah. And I think he should be afforded that time to kind of get it wrong and figure it out, for me.
So yeah, Pyro, I did want to come to you there, because I think that the acceptance here, again, making it about points. If you get 66 points and you don't make it into the top 4, and in this next run of games you pick up 3 points, but around those two sides of it, you get your 2 points a game, despite missing out on the Champions League. When we come back to your idea of culture, that crucial point of culture, is that why you have to keep playing this way?
Oh, 100%. Because I think it is a long-term process, but the reason why everyone's bought into Ange's philosophy is because the football that we're playing right now reminds us of the football of the 90s and the 2000s with Ginola, with the stars that we used to have. Even Redknapp's 2010 team, If we play like that against Villa and City and we lose 2-1, 3-2, we said it at the start of the season before Ange even played a Premier League game. If we lost those games 3-2, 2-1, drew 2-2, but we showed attacking intent, a lot of the Spurs fans I spoke to said that's what they want to see. They want to see that sort of progress, and that's a big variable in how the culture shift has been operated in since Ange's come in. Sitting back, how are we going to score? You know, we're not going to be able to score against Villa or City if we sit back and defend. Our players aren't designed for that.
Yeah, and I keep coming back to this idea of like, why on earth would you not press? Because ultimately the balls are as far away from the goal as possible. Like, there were several hairy moments in the Chelsea game and the Wolves game, and look, you got what you deserved, I think, in the end with the Wolves game. But even when there are those breaks, you're still 40 yards away from goal, so there's a lot of time to kind of retrieve the situation a little bit. Sonny, when it comes to January, often teams don't spend that much in January. What would your feeling be around the idea of going big in January? Is that something you want to see, or are you in a rush, or how are you feeling about that?
I mean, it would be very anti-Levy to go big in January, considering this is the side who we didn't spend in a calendar year. So I mean, I've heard mixed things. 1 minute, apparently, we're really keen to get another centre back in, preferably a left-footed one, and a winger come striker type, who were two players that we still probably needed in the summer. But then David Ornstein says that actually, a lot of Tottenham fans think the Harry Kane money is still about. Like, it's sitting there, but then David Ornstein has said that's been spent. That was the money that had already gone out on Mickey van der Ven and everyone like that. Right. So we're all sitting there going, have we been duped here? Oh, punks. But I mean, those are two critical positions. You might even want to add another midfielder in there, considering on the problem we still have at the club is, even with all these this injury scenario, we've still got players at the club who weren't meant to be there. The only players we got rid of in the summer, apart from obviously Harry Kane, was Harry Winks and Davison Sanchez after the window had shut. We've still got a lot of deadwood, but we're now using that deadwood to basically prop up the project. So it's a really tricky situation, and I still am not sure what sort of players we're going to go for, because obviously Tottenham are now in this stat-based signing era. I've seen us linked with a winger, a Norwegian winger. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Nusa or something like that. I've seen him being touted about, and I've seen a couple of other names. But it's pretty much, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack of anyone we've been linked to. But obviously, what are we now? November the 13th. I think Johan Lang started at the beginning of this month. So hopefully he's got his finger in many pies. But I think we've got to really get something sorted, because even when these players come back in early January, they're still not going to be, fully game fit and up for it. I mean, you look at Bentancur, he's probably been rushed back a bit too earlier. We would have loved to have wrapped him up in a bit more cotton wool and, ease him into games, but he's now coming on in the 70th minute when we're chasing or holding on to a situation. So, yeah, it's a tricky situation. But then again, on the flip side, I would like to say, we have got a very good academy at the moment. We have invested in the academy. We've got players like, I know Phillips came from Blackburn. We've got Alfie Dorrington, Donnelly. There's a lot of rich talent there. And a good thing about bringing Ange in is Ange will bleed in youth prospects more than Conte and Mourinho were ever going to do. So there is that possibility that will happen as well. But yeah, there's more questions than answers, I'd say.
Okay, so if we get to January, right, for all three of you, let me come to you first, Ben, then Pyro, then Sonny. You can solve one sort of position/profile in January. Which one would you choose? I don't need a player. I just need more kind of the position of it all. Ben?
I think it has to be centre-back, because you mentioned at the start of the video, if you look at Tottenham's injury list, there are a few other players outside of Maddison and Van der Ven who are injured till the start of next year, and two of those players are Manuel Solomon, and Ivan Perisic is far more long-term. But I feel like we can get to a point at some point when Maddison comes back that we will have a couple more players arriving back with him in that attacking area. Don't get me wrong, I think the thing is, if we were still playing with Richarlison and Brennan Johnson hadn't quite hit the ground running yet, I think that would be more of a problem position, because you look at the way Postecoglou sets up the team, the wingers are so important. And for me, I'm not a bigger hater as on Richarlison as a lot of other people in the Spurs fan base, although he divides opinion very much. I do think that was the obvious upgrade when you've got the full team fit. But the situation we find ourselves in now is very, very different to 2 weeks ago when our Spurs fans were still having that same conversation of who would you bring in January. So for me, in terms of the drop off from first team to who else you've got available within the squad, I think the centre back is the most glaring issue. And I think it has to be, for me, it has to be on that left-hand side because, like Sonny said, I'm a big believer in bringing players through the academy, and I think Ange Postecoglou has done so well in giving a couple of these players opportunities, not necessarily to play, but to kind of get a taste of what it's like to be on the bench and expose them to that environment. And you look at the players within the team who haven't come up through the academy that we've bought. We've still got a lot of young players, and I think Mickey van der Ven's spoken about it, Destiny Adoghi's spoken about it, the fact that if anything goes wrong, it's on me. I take the blame. And I think that's why I think if you were to bring in an Alfie Dorrington at centre-back or an Ashley Phillips, I think, one, the Spurs fan base will be behind it because we want to see players coming up through the academy. But two, they're coming in with that little bit more confidence because they've got an arm around the shoulder and a manager that's going to actually protect them in public. So that said, I do think on that left-hand side of the defence, the thing is, I kind of wrote this down early, like if you're looking at Mickey van der Ven, he is impossible to replace because of his kind of like, not freakish, but like unique kind of stature and his recovery pace, right? There aren't many centre-backs out there that have got that. And that's why Tottenham were very, very lucky to get him across the line, even though there are a lot of other suitors. So whoever you bring in is going to have to be of a similar profile, but you know that you're not going to get the same player. But that said, I do think the centre-back is the most glaring position because, like you said, Eric Dyer is not going to be here much longer after January or the end of the summer. Ben Davies isn't going to be here that much longer, and we kind of need to move on as a squad. Even though I like those two players, and Rome wasn't built in a day either. We've only had one transfer window in the Postecoglou, so I think there's no point for me going big in January because say if you were to go out and get Tapsoba, who would be a lot of Spurs fans' ideal signing, you then create a problem for yourself, which Ange Postecoglou wants to avoid by having players on the fringes that are ready to come in and are hungry. If you've gone and signed another centre-back for 50, 60 million, which he's going to be around that kind of ballpark in terms of price, then do you create a fractious kind of feeling within the squad that might not have been there? So I think Spurs have to play it very carefully. But for me, someone like a Lloyd Kelly, who would be homegrown. He's out of contract come the end of the summer. I know a lot of Spurs fans will see it as like the cheap option, but if you look at his profile, there's a reason why Spurs were looking at him in the summer. Yeah. Liverpool have been after him as well. So that would kind of be the sort of player that I would look to in January.
Okay. Well answered. Pyro, what's the one area you'd change? Or you'd get sorted in January?
I think centre-back's obvious, but one thing I've noticed is, Kulusevski, I fucking love him, I'd love him to bits, but his right foot is as good as Lamella's, and I think that's a problem with Ange's system. There's been chances when we're on the break, and he can swing in a right foot pass to Son or the left-sided winger, and I don't think we have any depth there. I might be wrong, but with Perisic out long term, who usually plays on the left anyway, when Gill's come on, he's been on the left. When Johnson comes on, he's on the left. Richarlison's on the left. There's no one there to actually replace Kulusevski, and he's always played 90 minutes and runs like a horse.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, I'd probably look for that position too. Centre back's obviously going to be the blatant one, but.
And Sonny, the same? Would you agree, or?
Yeah, not to repeat what Ben and Pyro have said, but it's got to be centre back. I think there's still options out there. I'd say like Tosin Adarabioyo. Like there's players who we were linked with in the summer who've still not resolved their futures. I'd say the only point I'd say about the other positions is I still think we're comfortable in those areas. Like we've still got, even though we have injuries in the forward line, we've still got players to come in. Midfield might be a bit of a mishmash with the likes of Oliver Skip and players like that, but I still think they're proven at a level that they'll be able to cope. And it's just centre back. It is the biggest drop off, I'd say, as well. You get rid of those two, it's like, well, as we saw at the weekend, and it seems at the moment we're just shoehorning players into a position, forcing Ben Davies to play at centre back, which was the situation when he was in a back three, different because he's got time and two other centre backs to rely on. But in a four, it was a bit ghastly. I'm not going to lie.
I think he played all right. Sorry.
Yeah, I agree. With you. I think it's one of those ones that it's like you have to. It's funny, isn't it? Although you're certain of who your guy is, that in Postecoglou, that could make you think, well, let's go get this sorted out because we kind of know how he plays. Let's get our guys. But actually, that's the wrong way to go about it. Like, at no point should you ever be feeling rushed into a signing. And there's always other players, I think. And so I would agree with you guys. It'd be interesting. I think like you're having such a, it sounds horrific, but you're having such a vibes season that you could chuck in the kids and just go, well, we're having a bit of fun, aren't we? Let's just kind of see how it goes and then wait for the boys to get back. I do worry, but I don't think I've seen a hamstring. I could literally see the hamstring go so aggressively on Van der Ven that you sort of you get little Michael Owen flashbacks. You hope that he will be the same player once again. So that would be a bit of a concern for me as well. But I've heard a lot about the youth team, and I think it's one where the lack of expectations is so freeing for Spurs fans right now that like stay in that space like whilst you can. With that said, could they? Final question is the only question. You're still 2 points off top of the league, boys. And so could they, Sonny? And if not, where will you finish this season, do you think?
I'm going to say no because I'm a glass half empty Spurs fan. Just think we're a few seasons off title race. That's not even saying winning a title, but we've seen, this is a big issue. We've got issues to combat. Same with Arsenal last year. They lost their centre back and lost the league, according to them. Where do I think we'll finish? Well, people at the beginning of the season, when they were saying 7th, 8th and 9th, I couldn't believe it. I was just shocked. I said 6th, but if 5th gives you Champions League football this year, which I'm not sure if it does, we should just try and go all out for that. And I still think when it comes to the likes of the teams below, like your Brightons, Villas, even United, I feel like we're still possibly the best of the rest because with Brighton, I still don't think something's clicking. I don't think they're happy with the European football. Newcastle, it's a bit hit and miss. They're either really good or very questionable. And United are United. So I'll end it there.
Ben?
As a glass half full Spurs fan, I'm still going to say no. But on the whole, could they thing? I think football fans get so vilified for living in the moment these days because of the fear of getting kind of clipped up and saying these things. And sometimes it's all right to get carried away. And I think there's this bubble of Spurs fans that we were just having a laugh and a joke within ourselves. And it's like, it feels so far away that it's like, well, why not? And I think it did get to a point after that Crystal Palace game where it did kind of get a little bit too close to the bone. It's like, well, like the way we're playing, it's like, is anyone playing as well as us at the moment? It's like, why not? But, we've had a rocky week, but I've still enjoyed the first 12 games of the season more than any set of 12 games over the last few years. And Postecoglou said it so well at the start of the season. I think it was after the Sheffield United game. He was like, the guy on Spurs TV asked him, was like, oh, what do you think about the fans kind of getting carried away? And he was like, let them go, let them enjoy it. And it's like, I love that. Football is about feeling football is about feeling for me and living in the moment. And it shouldn't feel like a crime to be positive about your club. There's going to be bumps in the road. We knew that at the start of the season, and we're so much further than we thought we were going to be already. In terms of where I think we're going to finish, I think I'm going to stick my flag in the sand and say I think we'll still finish 4th. I think, and that would be an amazing season. Even 5th would be amazing. So yeah, I'm gonna go with 4th.
Pyro, what are we saying?
Yeah, I don't see any point in enjoying watching football if you're not going to get carried away a bit. Imagine if Leicester, right, they went the entire season top 2, but then they lost it in the last hurdle. And if you're a Leicester fan, you're going to hold on enjoying it until you win. Then you've kind of wasted the entire season. That's the best ever season they've had in like 60-something years, but you can't enjoy it because you might not win. Who gives a crap,
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, that's the problem. Everyone else is waiting. That's the problem.
Yeah,
comparing.
If you lose, you lose. Yeah, but also I want to know what you think. What defines a title contender? Like, what metric do you use? Is it just a table? Is it
not
history?
For me. I think it's always a mix, right? I think you need to see some statistics that are working for you. I think more and more I believe that the way that Postecoglou is playing is how a title challenging team plays. I think you have to control the ball. I think you have to have tenacity when you don't have it. I think you have to score goals and score too many goals because there's going to be a game where you're not going to score too many goals. So you need to score one more than the opposition. And that's why I keep going back to Liverpool, because I think that they have, from the start of the season, I felt they have more goals in their team than any of the other title contenders. So that's what I kind of base it on. And I think that's why people will be able to have fun with this, because those elements are there. And I think that's the thing where like this is actually going to be a really pivotal period for Spurs, because if it does start to look a little bit ugly and there's this focus on 3 or 4 games, it is so stupid, because what you're really trying to get to is the end of next season, going into a summer and going, do you know what? We've got an actual chance next year of doing something. I think we're 2 players away. You want to get to that point, right? So I think he has to keep playing the way he has. And anyone that says that it is foolhardy, it's not. It's about the bigger picture. And I think he's great for that. Yes, Sonny, go on, finish it off.
I want to mention the amount of people who have said, "Oh, you should have sat back in those 2 games. You should have sat back." I've watched enough football where Tottenham have sat back and conceded 60+ goals last year to know that I don't want us to sit back. I want us to, people were saying, "Oh, you're a bit gung-ho, you're a bit like Leeds," but I feel like it'll Leeds under Bielsa. But I still think there's more coherence. I feel like it is a bit more total football, the way the players like interconnect. So, as I say, we're all having fun. Would have snapped your hand off for 4th place at this stage. These international breaks haven't helped us because there have been so many. It's getting tiresome, but let's all get excited and back the club.
Yeah, I think Liverpool will probably win, just because I think the mentality that Man City have after winning a treble shouldn't be overstated. It's so hard to maintain that winning mentality when you've just had this huge success. So I think they'll probably fall off. Everyone's not really considering that, I don't think.
Yeah, they might have just enough, and Liverpool might not be totally there. But I think it's for me, it's those 2. Something doesn't totally. I speak about it in the Arsenal video. Something doesn't feel totally right about Arsenal for me. I don't know. I can't really totally put my finger on it, and I can't figure it.
Weirdo.
Maybe. Right, we're gonna have to leave it there on that beautiful note. Spurs fans will be happy with that. So if you're a Spurs fan, you're happy with that ending, hit the like button. Get involved in the Discord server. You could be on the channel and just be a part of what I'm trying to build here. So please do get involved, and you can win beer. Not everyone drinks, but if you do, then get involved. Put your comment down below with your Discord name and tell me why. Massive thank you to the guys. Sonny's got a channel. There will be a link in the description for that. Ben, do you have a YouTube channel? No, you got TikTok, right?
Yeah, not YouTube just yet, but it's coming.
It's coming. Okay, I'm excited. Make sure you do that, please. And Pyro, if we need a psychologist, where can we find you?
I don't know. Just message me on Discord.
I will. Amazing. Right, guys. Thank you so much.
Cheers,
speak to you all very, very soon. Cheers.